Welcome to EdUp Curriculum. I am your host, Nicole Poff, and we are back after a very long break. We are officially back, and I am so excited for today's guest, kind of joining us for the first episode of season 3 is a just really trusted colleague, someone who works with me at EdCarta, Holly Owens. So, Holly, thank you so much for being here with us. Before we jump in, can you just tell the listeners more about yourself? Share whatever you want to.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited to be back in podcasting because I think I've been on hiatus from mine since October. So I have to remember how to do all this. But hi, everyone. Thank you, Nicole, for having me. My name is Holly Owens, and I'm just going to say I'm an instructional designer because that's pretty much all I do nowadays is instructional design. I started out my career as a high school teacher, and then I found that not as exciting with administrative type tasks and other things. So I left the classroom, like a lot of people who probably listen to your show and listen to my show. Got into e-learning development with the government for a little bit. And then my boss at the time said, there's this opening at Northern Virginia Community College, because I was living in Maryland at the time. He's like, I think you should apply. So I applied. They immediately responded. Had an interview, and 15 minutes after I walked out the door, they're like, you're hired. So did that. I was bouncing around to different institutions within Maryland. It was really an instructional specialist position. It hadn't been called instructional design yet. So I went back to the USM in Maryland, worked at Coppin State, worked at my, where I went to undergrad, UMBC, worked at, Torrey University in New York. I teach part-time. I do have the podcast, do contract work, as you know, do all the different things, which has led me to have a really fulfilling career at this point at middle-aged. And I'm so happy for the opportunities, and being out in LinkedIn world, meeting different people. What else can I say about myself? I just love instructional design, and I love taking learning experiences and making them more impactful to the learners. I mean, things are so boring. I don't know how else to say it without being rude. Learning is boring sometimes, and instructional designers have a great way of making it less boring and more intriguing and insightful.
Absolutely. And I love that you have experience in both sides. You have the higher ed instructional design experience. You also have corporate.
That's right. I forgot about Amazon and Mars.
You totally forgot about those.
Yeah.
But those are, I don't even feel like, I'm maybe way off base here. I don't even feel like you should be able to call those two things the same. Like a higher ed instructional designer and a corporate instructional designer, it's like night and day. I mean, do you agree?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I've done some comparisons before in the past, with infographics and things. And I think the one big major difference between the two is higher ed is notoriously slower to assimilate to new technologies or just decisions and things that, they take a while in higher education. Whereas in corporate, you might hear the dogs. Do you hear them? Whereas in corporate, they're more apt to have innovation. They're more like, okay, we'll try this and see if it works, and then we can use it. And if it doesn't work, it's not a big deal. Amazon has different leadership principles, and the two-way door decision and walking stuff back is fine. Whereas in higher ed, it's like we're afraid. We're afraid we're gonna make a decision. It's gonna screw it up a little bit. And then we're never it's our reputation. It's never going to go back to the way it was, which isn't the case. Higher ed is just, I don't understand it. Until 2012, I started teaching in higher ed. So I've been teaching the whole time through, but I haven't been full time in higher ed since 2017. And I came back, and it's almost 10 years, and things are still pretty much the same. Which is good and bad. Good that I can acclimate back in to the higher ed space, but bad in the sense that it's oh my gosh, we're still having these issues. We're still not getting things through. They still have to go through this person and that hoop to get things approved. That's really difficult, especially when you're trying to get the information out, get the product out, or whatever it may be to the students. It takes forever.
Totally. It feels like in higher ed, sometimes we can just like get frozen by like this, it has to be perfect. Whereas corporate, I feel like they have this like idea of iteration a little bit more under control, right? Like they're like, let's get a product out. We can iterate. We can make it better for version 2, version 3, version 4. And higher ed, sometimes it's like, it must be perfect. And then we're going to talk about it for 5 years.
Right.
And
Perfection
now
does not
it's,
exist.
yeah, and now it's obsolete because it's been 5 years. But we have it perfect, but the student has graduated from high school and a different college.
Yeah, I think you bring up a lot of good points that instructional design is iterative. So it's never finished. I think that's one thing I love about this is that it's always changing. So that keeps me attentive and focused on like what things are happening and the trends outside of it so that we can implement those things there. And also too, it's interesting because some students come into higher education and are like, I had this in high school. Why isn't this at the collegiate level? Like a technology, or why are instructors not just constantly lecturing? Why is there no like CBE or group work or things like that? It's just very archaic. No offense to higher ed. I love higher ed, but no, it's just, it hasn't changed much in like, 300 years or whatever.
I mean, I think that's what most people are. I don't think anyone is disagreeing with you. Like,
Yeah.
We need some changes. Okay, so I'm going to do a little bit of podcast inception here because you have your own podcast. And so you get to talk to others in the field. And so, kind of based on your conversations, right, across people with the field, like what keeps coming up? What are people excited about right now? What are people nervous about right now? Like what's popping up a lot in your conversations?
AI has definitely popped up a lot more. And how to deal with, create policies, especially in higher ed, not in corporate. Corporates, it's I'll get to corporate. Institutions are like, we have to have a policy around this. Like, how do we use it and how do we use it responsibly and ethically? So people are excited about it, but they're also cautious at the same time. I think that's what I've encountered the most recently in doing my podcast. Also, too, there's this very high demand, and people are excited about like instructional designers still, like what we do, how we change things, the way we think about courses. I feel like there's really a more of an appreciation for us since post pandemic, and people understand that we're here to help and support them, not to tell them how to teach, more or less. Um, so that's a good thing. And in corporate, I would say they're obviously excited about AI and they're more open to it. But at organizations that I work for, like Amazon and Mars, they've developed their own internal tools like Chat GPT and stuff because of security reasons and not tracking stuff. But they're just aligning with it. They're just going with it. It's not like they're saying no, we can't use it. And then thinking about K to 12, I remember when ChatGPT came out a few years back, and New York City public schools immediately banned it. They immediately said, we're not going to use this and you're not allowed to use this without even doing research, without even giving it a shot. I think they've walked that back quite a bit at this point, but stuff like that, it's an overall, it's anxious, excitement, but fear still lingering about. And challenges definitely across the board are money with the current administration and different things that are being changed and how money is feeding into what parts of the institutions or the organizations. People talk a lot about like, well, how are we going to get funding? Is it going to be through grants? Is it going to be through, donors? Well, how are we going to do it and keep these things going with all the challenges and the economy and stuff like that?
Totally. Yeah, I think it's also like interesting, but what you said about people being more excited about instructional designers, and I'm doing my dissertation and I'm interviewing faculty, and it's about their relationships with instructional designers. And I honestly thought that the interviews would be more negative. I don't know why, but they were all really positive, and they
I'm
were
so
like,
glad.
I know, right? They're like, I love IDs. Like, I can bring my ideas to an instructional designer, and they like elevate it
Right.
so big. I was shocked, Holly. I was like,
You're like,
That
they're going to be saying that we put our nose in our business where it shouldn't be, that kind of stuff. We're telling them how to teach. But it's interesting, Nicole, because a lot of us who are instructional designers also teach. And I don't know about you, when you're doing your dissertation and other activities, I can't go into a course and not critique it from an instructional design perspective. It's
goes
it's
then.
just something like when a movie producer watches the full film, they're critiquing like where something could have changed or something like that. Yeah.
Oh, it's a curse. For me, it's even worse than that. It's like when I go to a restaurant, I
Yeah.
like inconsistencies with the menu,
Yes.
spelling errors, inconsistency with verbs, how they're, bullet points, some have periods, some don't. Like my husband thinks I'm a maniac because I'm like, oh, look at this. They have bullet points. They don't have bullet points. They have periods. They don't have periods. This is spelt wrong. He's like, just what burrito do you want?
Right. Yeah, a restaurant that we frequent here in Wilmington, North Carolina, they have like a daily menu, and they were using red before to highlight some of their stuff, and my accessibility brain was like, that's not a good idea. And seeing those sorts of things like that exist in the world that are, with teaching, I try to always relate it to real world things. So I told my students, I said, think about an experience you've had with like a game on your phone, and or if you're using a new technology, like how it walks you through how to use that technology, like the little windows that pop up. I'm like, that's instructional design. It might be more UX, UI side, but that's still instructional design. Somebody had to help develop that pathway, to help you get to the point where you need to be, like the bigger picture.
Totally. Now, something you said, schools facing budgetary issues. Something that kind of keeps popping back up in conversations I'm having with people is we're moving a lot of classes online because that's what the students want, but we don't have the budget to support full instructional designers, a full course development process. In your opinion, if a school's like, hey, we just need to like baseline elevate these online courses that we just literally drug from on ground to online, what's like 2 things that you think that they could do at a minimum per course that would just make an impact for students?
Number one, they need to look at accessibility and universal design for learning and put those things first into the classes that they're transitioning face-to-face, hybrid, or online. Like there's a whole checklist anywhere, whether you're using Canvas or other LMSs, and the UDL page that's out there. Like they need to have that as a part of that's number one, because of what's coming down the line with the federal government and the WCAG expectations or the regulations, the things that have to happen. So that is number one. Number two, they need to think about how intuitive are the products that they're using, along with like the alignment to the content. Like I've seen so many classes recently going back and working at like the community college and everything, that they just put all the information in. They're not utilizing the LMS as like a place for community, or a place where it should be something that's engaging, not just like we're throwing information at you and we're throwing it back at you. You're throwing it back at me, like the regurgitation effect. So I think they need to look at accessibility and UDL and incorporating that from the beginning. And then think about the flow of the course and how that, aligns with their content. Like, I really think that's an afterthought sometimes. Like, they just throw everything in there because they think they need everything in there. So really going back and evaluating your resources, and does it make logical sense for these things to go this way? Or is it confusing to the student? Think about, if you were a learner, would you want to take this course?
Totally. Yeah, I mean, accessibility is something that I'm honestly surprised that more schools don't seem nervous about.
Yeah, it's like a month away.
Yeah. It's kind of alarming to me that more schools are not like, oh my gosh, this is close, depending upon when their deadline is. And I'm hearing a lot of like, oh, we have an office of accessibility. So if I have a student who's in my class, that office will handle it. And I'm like,
but that's not what the law is saying. It's talking about accessibility in terms of like, it says on websites, but it means online courses too. It means everywhere. within the institution, within the organization, the corporation, wherever it may be. So that applies to everybody. They are not just saying like, oh, we checked that off the list because we have an Office of Student Disability Services. That's not the case. You have to do other things to fulfill those expectations.
Totally. I mean, I'm looking at some of these faculty, like, stop photocopying textbooks.
Oh my God, I know. We have it. Yeah. It's like,
I mean, like, we should be well past. Yeah.
Yeah, we should be
well past photocopies of books.
Yeah.
But somehow, like you said, we're not. Okay. So going back to your podcast, I'm going to bring us all the way back. Have you ever had a guest who just really changed your perspective on the field? Like, have you ever had someone where you're like, oh, that's really good perspective, or I hadn't really thought about that? Like a guest that gave you kind of some little nugget of wisdom.
Yeah, I think that there's two people that come to mind initially, and one of them is Luke Hobson, because he's one of the first people I met when I started getting more active on LinkedIn, and his whole perspective about instructional design is like his and mine are very similar, and we just want to impact the learner. But he also has like this graceful way of just taking, he works at MIT and he's moved up quite a bit. He has a podcast too, of explaining what it means to be an instructional designer to, like, say, the general public. And I appreciated that so much when I first met him, because I was having a hard time articulating to my family what I did. They're like, instructional design, what does that mean? And I think the sentence we came up with when I was telling my grandparents is, I design online courses, or I design e-learnings, because that's what they could understand. I was like, it's so much more complex than that. So I think Luke has helped me appreciate like how to take instructional design and have people understand in a way that it relates to them and it's impactful to them and they connect with it. The other person that comes to mind is Chelsea Averett, who does Skip Jobs at Skip. She does so much research because, I do job postings out on LinkedIn about what jobs are available, what jobs teachers can get from being instructional design, from being in teaching to instructional design. She posts so many different jobs and does it like manually, like checks job boards for people. And she shares all that data and information. And she tags things in a way that's just, it's so nice to have somebody that's willing to take the extra time to do that. And, one of her expectations is the job has to be paying $60K or more. People often, I've said this in one of my episodes, they will try to jump out of a teaching role and then they will jump into a role that's paying less. I'm like, well, teaching already doesn't pay enough. So how could you take any less? So those are the two that stand out the most to me in my travels through the instructional design world.
I love that. It's funny that when you're talking about Luke, because when I remember before I was an instructional designer, all I wanted to be was an instructional designer, right? I worked in career services and I was like, I want to be an ID. So I did all these extra things to boost my resume. I finally became an instructional designer. And I would tell people I'm an instructional designer and they're like, what's that? I'm like,
yeah, what the heck are you talking about?
Well, I just worked years to try to get this title and no one knows what I am. Great.
Any idea what you're doing?
Yeah, none. That's hilarious. So that's so funny.
It's kind of like, you really don't understand it until you're actually in it. And the nuances of it shift from institution to institution. Even in the same sector, they're different. It depends on how the culture of the company sees what an instructional designer is. Like, you could be a person who's just putting together content in a class and uploading it to the LMS or something like that. Or you could be an instructional designer where you're doing everything. You're helping with course mapping, you're helping the faculty with technology and learning that as well. So it could be the whole gambit, or it can be just little pieces of it. And that exists in the corporate world too.
Yep, that's so true. I come into so many universities and I'm like, oh, your ID is tech support. Okay.
Yeah.
They're just responding to tech tickets. Got it.
Good point. They either fall under IT or like academics, and then they can't really decide because we are both. We were both academic and we were both IT people. That's the term instructional technology. Those people that know the back ends of the system, the admins, the ed tech people who are like, I understand how this system works and this is how you use it. And then instructor designers step in and say how to use it properly, appropriately for your students and aligning with your learning objectives.
Definitely. And within my dissertation interviews, so many faculty, when I asked, like, what does an instructional designer do? They brought up technology. It was like pedagogy was kind of second to technology. It's like they know the technology, they know accessibility, they know how to use the LMS, they know how to build in the LMS, they know what's possible. Like they are tech. It was pretty clear where they thought instructional designers lived.
Yeah. They definitely see us as like, I've been asked a million times, like, can you help me with my computer? Do something on my computer. Upload something, download something. Yeah. They definitely see us as
I always say instructional designers are so scrappy. Like I'm always like instructional designers are the scrappiest of scrappy in the best possible way, because most of the time schools don't have a lot of resources. And so, back when Canva was getting started, right? That was like, oh my gosh, I don't have to use Photoshop anymore. I can use Canva and create these beautiful PDFs for my faculty. I don't know how to make videos. I'm going to use PowerPoint, right? And I'm going to record my screen audio, and then I'm going to convert it to .move. Like instructional designers just know how to figure out how to get things done. I can't even. Why?
I'm on the same page as you, because we're the type of people, if we hit a barrier in technology, we figure out how to make that technology work for us and do things that it maybe doesn't necessarily do intuitively, and we get it done. I think you're alluding to the fact that the different roles that we wear as an instructional designer, we're techies, we're pedagogical experts, we're educators, we're therapists, we're motivators,
project managers,
all the things. Like it's instructional design, but it really does encompass so much across different types of, like, a project management is roles within itself in organizations and institutions. And we do that just automatically. I don't know how to, I always think about this. I don't know how to explain my brain to people. I don't know how to explain how I can do this. It's definitely through experience. It's definitely because of teaching and all the culmination of all the jobs that I've had. But I've always feel like, since I knew I wanted to be a teacher, I've thought this way. Like, what is the best experience for the learners and how do we get there? So it's hard to explain my brain. I don't know if you run into that.
No, and we have, I think that's one thing, like when I'm kicking off with, I would kick off with this meet, they would say like, okay, this is what the course is going to look like. And I'm like, let's wait a minute. Pull back. Yeah. Let's pull back a little bit. Let's dream here, right? Like, let's really think about the student and what's the best experience for them. And oftentimes it's not going to be that they're writing an essay, right? But we have to, we jump into like the how, I feel like, before we jump into the, like we try to figure out they're gonna create a PowerPoint. We identify that first before we actually identify what they're gonna do in the PowerPoint. And then if we can get them there, like, is PowerPoint really the effective way that they should be making this?
Yeah.
So I'm right there with you.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is just trying to piece together, way back when in the old days, like how we can leverage technology to help us to get to the end result that we're expecting. And nowadays it's just different. You have to be more creative. People, shorter attention spans, all the way from childhood to adults, thinking about ways in which they can engage and learn without even thinking about it. Like they're fully connecting with it. I think that's what happens when you learn, is you are connecting it to something you already know. There's prior knowledge there. There's an experience there. Because when we often talk as humans, we're like, or like when Nicole, when you and I talk, we share experiences from our lives. Like that's what I do when I learn, is I connect it to something that I already know, and then it makes more sense to me. That's constructivism.
Or something, I always say, like, something that our students don't know, right? Like I beat this over and over and again. Like, what's the context? Why do our students need to know this? If they're going to be an accountant they don't know what they don't know. And so we have to provide, if they're not bringing that experience in yet, we have to bring in our experience and basically tell them, like, this is why this matters and why you should even give brain power to this topic.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. So when you're looking across your work, your podcasts, conversations you've had in the field, what's one lesson that you feel like higher ed still needs to learn?
Okay, I know accreditation is important, but it's not the only thing. And compliance and all that stuff. I feel like higher ed needs to learn that every student is different. And, I remember back when they used to just say we're just a number when students, especially at the larger like D1 institutions, we're just a number. Everybody comes in with their own set of learning experiences, their own set of life experiences. And when you focus on that and you focus on the human at the center of everything else kind of automatically aligns, like compliance, accreditation. I think far too often, like, fear becomes a priority that motivates what higher ed does, instead of just really thinking about, like, how can I make this better, or how can I make this different, or like some of the greatest minds. Like, I think one example I use is Galileo, like his theory or something about the stars, whatever. It wasn't accepted until the 90s. And he's back in, like, what, the 1800s. So, like, thinking differently and about the human and doing it against the grain isn't necessarily wrong. It might be something that is going to elevate your institution and then in turn increase retention, increase enrollment, make you known for being an institution that really cares about each and every person. I know it's impossible to, like, know every single student, but there are ways to kind of touch everybody at a certain point. So I think higher ed needs to learn that accreditation and compliance aren't the only things, and that the students are the ones who are paying our salaries. So we need to really focus our priorities on what they need.
I completely agree. I mean, I think accreditation is like the scapegoat of higher ed, right? Like, we can, I've heard faculty say we have to put a drop box there because our accreditors want to see that. And I'm like, our accreditors don't care that in week 3 there's a drop box for this assignment. They're not looking on that level, right? But it's like become the scapegoat of, we can use it to weaponize agendas. I feel like we can say we have to do this for our accreditor, and not a lot of people know that we actually don't need to. So people just, they hear the word accreditation and then they're like, okay, I'll back off, right?
Or audit, kind of like taxes. They're just, it's the fear is just, it's just too much. The people don't think that they're doing what they need to do. And if you're, one of the things that higher ed definitely struggles with, and it's not going to open another can of worms, is that higher education faculty are SMEs, and they're not trained to be educators or teachers. They don't know how to teach. And that there's a book called The Missing Course. It was created because they were trying to teach graduate assistants, teaching assistants how to teach at a collegiate level, but eventually it kind of made its way into the hands of faculty. And, like, how do you teach if you're a subject matter expert and you've never had a pedagogical class in your entire life or learned about adult learning theory?
Yep. Absolutely. Someone asked me the other day, like, what's the biggest difference between K through 12 teachers and faculty? And I'm like, one was trained to teach and the other wasn't. I mean, it's like black and white. And it's to the no fault of the faculty. It's unreasonable that an expert in biology would also be expected to be an expert in teaching, right?
Yeah.
But like the gap has to be filled. We can't just leave the gap there and be like, okay, you're an expert in biology, figure it out. Yeah.
It's
and
like
I think that's ultimately.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's what our students are ultimately, kind of facing now, is like, maybe our generation, we tolerated it a little bit more. But I think what I'm seeing online and what I'm reading into, evaluations and things like that is like, they're just not as tolerant as what you know what I mean? It's like, I used to just be like, okay, they haven't been in the field, or, but they're doing their best. And this generation, they burn down these schools on Reddit. They're like
Yeah.
this. they and they're like, why am I paying $60,000 when I can take a $7 course on Instagram, right? And they're promising that I'm going to make six figures on Instagram.
Right. Yeah.
Why am I listening to this lady who doesn't know how to teach a class? I don't know.
Yeah, or they're paying $2,000 to sit in a room with somebody lecturing them for 2 hours twice a week, and they're just taking a midterm and a final. Like, what kind of experience is that?
Totally. Or right now I'm seeing a lot of textbook dependencies where it's like, oh great, McGraw-Hill, cool. There's some interactives with this textbook and there's some case studies. Here you go. The textbook is now your course. And a lot of students on Reddit are saying like, yeah, a lot of students on Reddit are like, why am I paying $200 for a textbook and then $2,000 for a course when really all I needed was a $200 textbook? Like there's no additional. Yeah. That's exactly what I'm doing. But I think, all that to say is like, it's not the fault of the faculty. Like they're holding up their sides of the bargain. They are an expert in their field. There's just a gap that needs to be filled.
Absolutely. Like they're also, it's like when any human wants to find a quote unquote shortcut or, a way to make it like I don't have to do as much. One of the things that those textbook vendors are doing in the third party tools is people don't understand this, but an online course isn't the same as self-paced. They are not synonymous. Online is totally different than a self-paced course. Now, if it was a self-paced course, I could understand including all that information, but it's not. It's online is a place to connect, to have a community. Think about different groups you're part of, maybe on Facebook or on social media, and why you're part of that community. That's what online should be. But yeah, they're not. They're just thinking of like, well, just like the students, well, how do I get it done? How do I do the bare minimum and meet accreditation expectations or meet my whatever institutional policies or things that are required of me. And one of them has definitely been bad in those. We have a problem with that. That's become a problem.
Totally. Well, Holly, I could do this all day. But we are, yeah, I know, this is so fun. Okay. Thank you so much for joining us. I've had so much fun. Yeah. And if people want to reach out to you, how do they connect with you, Holly?
Come to LinkedIn land. That's where I'm the most active.
It's true.
I think I'm up to almost 52,000 followers now, which is wonderful. So if you need something, you need me to share something, or you have a question, LinkedIn World is where it's at.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for being with us, Holly.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye.